Hey, guess what, guys? It is card number 141 from that 1953 Bowman Color set. It's Frank Speck Shea. Here he is from his time with the Washington Senators. Look at him. He's just about to throw and deliver his pitch, but he still has time to throw us a look behind him before the pitch comes in to home plate with a big smile on his face. After a 1951 season with the New York Yankees that wasn't too successful, that'd be kind of interesting to go look up that season and how unsuccessful it was. Frank was sent to Washington. That tells you everything you need to know about Washington and New York in terms of their teams in 1953. And his work was a bright spot for the Senators. Trivia question: does anybody know Frank Speck Shea's connection to Hollywood? Drop your answer in the chat if you know the answer. Try to do it without looking it up. If you get the answer correct, there is no prize other than the respect and admiration of your peers. Since it is card number 141 of the 53 Bowman Color set, it must be session number 141 of, you guessed it, Cardroom Live. Every now and then I hear people say, hey, that was a great show. What a great show, Alex. Thanks for putting on that show. Guys, please try to remember it's not a show. It's a hangout for fellow vintage collectors, whether we have guests or not. And we do have guests tonight. Most of the time we are wasting time looking at and talking about old cardboard, and through it all, we always try to make that time well wasted. And dare I say, we've done a pretty good job of doing just that for about 4 years now. So if you're here with us live, welcome. Welcome to my fellow YouTubers. Welcome to the commenters. Welcome to the folks from all over social media land. If you're new, don't be afraid to say hello. You are among cardboard friends. This is the live stream where everybody knows your name. It may take us a few tries, but we'll learn your name soon enough. If you're listening to this later, perhaps you are going to or coming home from work, sorting cards, looking at eBay, rolling out meatballs, walking the dog, sitting on the john, putting the kids to bed. Maybe you're battling raccoons in the backyard. Maybe you're wondering if Eddie Wakis will come up in conversation. Maybe you're wondering what other kind of Mike foolery we'll get into tonight. Whatever you might be doing or whatever you might be wondering, I do hope you get something out of the next hour. If you want to get in touch or have ideas for future sessions, or you want to nominate yourself or another collector for a future Cardroom Live session, you can email me at bowman53channel@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram, bowman53_Alex, on X 1953 Bowman Color, and Blue Sky Bowman53. And of course, all that information can be found in the description below. This session of Cardroom Live is brought to you by Topps 1 cent baseball stand-ups. Just imagine, guys, bubblegum picture cards that feature full color stand-up pictures, real-life action poses, along with an exciting new card game. Features all top major league stars. Wow, guys, baseball cards that actually stand up and have the Don Field of Dreams cards seal of approval. That's Topps 1 cent baseball stand-ups. So happy Sunday to you guys. Happy September. The Phillies are officially going to the postseason. However, they have not clinched the National League East. They kind of ruined my Sunday afternoon with a poor showing against the Kansas City Royals, but it'll happen one of these days. Appreciate everybody's patience. Last Sunday, lost power. Didn't just lose power, actually had a power line go down in my backyard thanks to a downed tree limb. Had the fire department and the power department in my backyard all night, and by like 1 a.m, finally got the power back. But we're here, and we're back, and we're up and running on Cardroom Live. Let's see who's here tonight. Peter B is here. Mike, the sports history collector, is here, ready to party. The dog ate my card collector. Well, if the dog did eat your card collector, at least the dog is holding court. Spartan card collector, the perfect night the wife is in the tub and I'm listening to Card Talk. I hope you enjoy it. I hope your wife enjoys the break as well. Stuke is here. What's up, Stuke? Baseball Time Traveler is here. Good to see you. Max Jackson is here. Sven is here. Larry is here. Kurt in Brooklyn is here. Let's see, sports cards. Jay Hawker, vintage cards. Mike. The Chiefs are toast. That's news. Pastor Craig's Vintage Cards is here. Ruben Snyder is here. You've been weight kissing all day for this. Oh, that was good. I like that, Ruben. Well done. Walter at College Shot Cards is here. Melissa is here. Mr. Reindeer Studios Wrench Holder is here. That vintage cardboard smell, that is definitely a good name for a channel. Mookie Chilson. Speck was the name of Pee-wee's dog in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Is that the connection? Incorrect, Mookie. Good guess, however. Peacemaker Cards. Jesse, Think Blue 77 is here. That's right, it's not a show. Steel City, I am having a pretty good Sunday. Reese Endy Card Ranger is here. Hammer 44. Didn't Shea help Redford in the natural? Ding, 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 ding. We have a winner. Hammer 44 is correct. Robert Redford called up Frank Speck Shea and asked for some tips on how to deliver in the old school wind-up fashion that would have been prevalent in the time period of that film, and Frank helped him out with that. That is the connection to the natural. Stephen with a PH is here. Rick Acosta is here. And a whole bunch of other folks are in here. Great to see everybody. ET Card Collector, thank you very much. Peeps is here. And Jacob is here. All right, we got a great group of folks in here. We have some guests waiting in the wings. I want to get them in here. One of these guys has been with us before, but we are here to talk about these two guests and a podcast that they're running. I want to briefly introduce the podcast, I think, first, and then I'll bring these two guys in. The two guests tonight are avid baseball fans, avid baseball collectors of memorabilia and stories and memories, and they are both collaborating on a podcast that I'm going to share with you guys here. It's called There is Joy in Mudville. Let me share my screen here so that you guys can take a look at what it looks like, and I'm just going to share it on Spotify, but of course you guys can find this in other areas, and perhaps our guests can tell us where else you can find it. But here it is. There is Joy in Mudville, home of the What If Baseball podcast. I'm just going to read the description to you guys in case you are new to this. The description says a retired teacher librarian joins forces with a funeral director / embalmer. You're already interested, I'm sure, guys. You're already curious. To produce classic baseball games, creating vintage broadcasts that are featuring legendary teams from yesteryear. What happens when Sandy Koufax stares down Lou Gehrig? That's an interesting proposition. Will Jackie Robinson be able to steal second off Johnny Bench? Who comes out on top when the 54 Giants square off against the 69 Mets? To find out, sit back and enjoy. Now let's play ball. So that's the idea behind There's Joy in Mudville. Let's bring in the two creators of There is Joy in Mudville. We've got Kurt. Kurt, how are you tonight? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I hear you now. Yes.
Okay, right on.
Broke up a little bit, but it's okay.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And we also have Don.
Hello.
Hey, Don, how are you tonight?
Good, thanks.
Kurt and Don, both glad to have you both here with us. And I know we're going to talk about a lot of stuff, and you guys have some stories and some memorabilia to share with us. I think maybe we should let's start with your personal backgrounds before we get into the podcast. And Don, why don't we start with you? Could you give us a sense of when baseball first got into your life, you know, whether it was collecting or the game, or maybe it was both? Give us a sense of where it all started for you.
Okay, so for me, I grew up in Montreal, and before the Expos entered into the league in 1969, I think there were about 2 straight years running where we went to Chazy, New York, which is near Plattsburgh, about an hour and 15 minutes from Montreal. And I remember going to a department store that was called Grant's, and they sold these baseball coins. And I remember buying them and then just being fascinated. And then it was probably a day or two later, while we were still in Chazy, that there was a Yankees game on the radio that we listened to. I knew that the Expos were coming into being, and it's like it was just an immediate hook for me. So how did I get started? You know, I can probably pinpoint it right back to that.
Hmm. Great, great. And that's I mean, that's such a huge part too. Like, very memorable moment in baseball history when that team began.
Well, it's funny too how you can remember certain things like, Grant's department store. I didn't know that you were going to ask me that question, and I probably haven't thought of that store in 50 years. But thank goodness it's still there.
Great, great. Okay, good. Kurt, how about you?
Well, I can't remember Grant's convenience store or Grant's department store because I'm only 50 years old.
Yeah,
But,
thanks.
I grew up in southwestern Manitoba, and we had a competitive baseball league in our community called the Manitoba Senior Baseball League, and the Brandon Cloverleafs were the team. And so I can remember at a young age, before I turned 10, thinking I got to be at all of these games because it was just the place to be. But I can remember in 1985, the Toronto Blue Jays were really good. So were the Kansas City Royals. The Royals ended up beating the Blue Jays after the Jays were up 3-1 in the American League Championship Series. Royals went on to who'd they beat? St. Louis in the World Series that year. And I was hooked on baseball. I had a dad who loved baseball. He was a lefty. I was a righty. He was an infielder. I was an outfielder. We'd play catch in the backyard, and I was hooked. We had a lake property about an hour north of Brandon, and I used to buy Donruss cards at it was a grocery store, convenience store. It was a butcher counter called Scracey's. And I think I could remember buying those in 86, 87, and just thinking these Donruss, like Diamond Kings, that just blew me away, the artwork. And I wasn't an avid collector through my teens in terms of cards, but baseball's always been a huge part of my life. Baseball books, baseball stuff, hats, you name it. So it's just awesome.
Right, absolutely. Well, so then we'll kind of jump back and forth, but I have to kind of flash forward. When did you both come up with this idea? And can you kind of take us through, and you guys can sort of maybe share the duties here. Can you kind of share how this process developed, and what and how and when did you guys decide, hey, let's actually turn this into a podcast?
You take this one, Don.
Okay, well, you jump in at any time. It's kind of a little bit of a convoluted story. So when I was 10 or 11, it was either 1970 or 71, I received a board game called Gil Hodges' Pennant Fever, similar to Stratomatic. Supposed to be a realistic baseball board game, that sort of thing. My brother and I played it religiously, that sort of thing. And then, of course, like any game when you're a kid, it gets lost in the shuffle. Somehow you lose track of it and it's gone. About 9 or 10 years ago, for Christmas, I decided to reproduce the game. It was long out of print, that sort of thing. So I did the research. I found remnants of the game online. I looked at the fielding charts, the slugging charts, all of the components of the game, and I recreated the game and I sent it to my brother for Christmas. And
oh, that's great.
And that was that. And then Kurt and I somehow crossed paths. I taught with Kurt's wife for a number of years, but we had never really crossed paths. We have a mutual friend, and somehow we started texting during, I think, around the baseball playoffs last year, wasn't it, Kurt?
Yeah, it was the postseason into the World Series.
Yeah, and I realized this guy is a fanatical baseball fan, so I made him a copy of the game, and I got in touch with his wife and gave it to her, and then she gave it to him, I think, Christmas Day or the day before, whatever. And in the back of my mind, as we were talking, I kept thinking about, this would be kind of an interesting thing to do, to take a look at teams from the past, and thinking, and I can't tell you exactly when it happened, but somehow there must have been a Ronald Reagan connection, because I knew of him from Iowa recreating games that, taking a look at a box score or the scorecard of a game, then recreating it for his listeners in Iowa. So I thought, wouldn't that be kind of neat to do? And then Kurt came over in January. We played the game, and we talked baseball a little bit. And I think, Kurt, that I had sort of mentioned the idea to you.
Yeah, your words were, "Are you interested in a project?" And
Yeah.
I thought, yeah. You said, "It has to do with baseball." And I said, "I'm in. Whatever it is, I'm in."
So I created a little bit of a rough draft, a dummy thing that I recorded. And the thing that I find funniest is that I played it for my wife and one of my daughters, and they listened and they humored their father and their husband. Oh, that's nice, Dad, and that sort of thing. And I thought, okay, they don't get it. And then I had sent the script to Kurt. He taped it, the play-by-play portion of it, and then I put in some background music, and then I played it for my wife and daughter, and then they went, "Oh, now we get it," and they understood what we were trying to do, because I mean, you can tell when you listen to Kurt, he has the voice for that. I don't. So it was a matter of just sort of saying, okay, here's what the idea is. Now let's move forward with it. Kurt, you jump in. I probably omitted about 50 things there.
No, you really didn't. It's interesting that Gil Hodges' Pen and Fever came out at the same time as 4 other board games that some of the guys in the chat may recognize. Rocky Graziano's boxing, Rod Gilbert's hockey, Vince Lombardi football, and Oscar Robertson's basketball. Those are all board games as well. And I'd like to play each one of them, but I'm sure happy that Gil Hodges' Pen and Fever came into our lives. And that's what we use to create the game. And we play the game, the roll of the dice, the cards, and that helps us with our script. It's interesting to note that we do use teams and players, and those all of those players don't have grades, original, they're not original to the board game, and they don't all have grades
Right.
that are featured in the podcast. So Don has to go through the I guess the raw stats, and he creates the numbers himself. He does all the writing.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kurt. I was going to say that when you bought the original game, it had a complete set of stats from the previous year. So if it was manufactured in 70, then it had the 1969 stats. But I think it has the 1970 stats for every major leaguer who played. There would be a power rating, and hitting average rating, pitching factors, fielding factors, base stealing factors, bunting factors, that sort of thing. So then that's what Kurt's saying, is that you have to then do the research, because the game that we has these stats for, or the ratings for 1970 players. So we're playing the 1952 Brooklyn Dodgers against the 1965 Minnesota Twins. Well, we have to go out and research and see how they fared in that year. And the other thing to keep in mind too is that when you're giving these players a rating, I'll use Davey Johnson as an example. He wasn't a power hitter. If I remember right, I don't think he ever hit 20 home runs until the early 70s in a season with Atlanta, and he hit over 40. So if we're playing, say it happened in 1973, if we're having the 1973 Atlanta Braves play against somebody, then his power rating is going to be maximum. It's going to be a Z. It can either be X, Y. I can't remember the alphabet now. W, X, Y, Z, V, W, X, Y, Z. There we go. It's not based on the career. It's based on that 1 year. So if a guy had an outstanding season that particular year, his rating goes through the roof. If he had a down year, well, he had a down year that year, because we're basing all of their ratings on that particular year.
Right. One of the things that I've enjoyed about the podcast is just seeing which teams you all are pairing up, and then of course thinking about which players are on those teams. How have you both gone about making those kinds of choices?
That's a bit of a tough one. Sometimes we just brainstorm a little bit.
I think, yes, texting back and forth. I mean, if someone were to go through the podcast log and take a look at our games, we've recorded 8 episodes and a bonus episode that we called Around the Horn. We were diamond surfing, and it's a shorter episode. But I think most baseball fans, certainly all of the guys and gals in the chat tonight, will recognize these classic teams. Yeah. We started with the 57 Milwaukee Braves against the 70 Baltimore Orioles. Game 6 featured Roberto Clemente and the 71 Pirates versus Willie Mays in the 54 Giants at the Polo Grounds. So these are classic teams that most, certainly vintage baseball fans will just be like, oh, wow, yeah, we know those guys.
Right.
The second game, we had the 48 Cleveland Indians, because that was a favorite team of my father-in-law's. So that was a way of honoring him. because I remember visiting him when he was about 87 or 88 at the time, and we were watching a ball game at his residence. And he starts telling me these stories about what had happened in a certain game. And I'm thinking, well, that can't be right. Got home, Googled it, did the research. He was bang on. Something about that particular series that he listened to on the radio, it just stuck with him for the rest of his life. So I thought, okay, we've got to include that in one of our games. So
that's great.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so just to give people a sense, and I'm sure many people will be, bookmarking this and going to listen to some of this afterwards, or maybe even right now, some people have left and they're just listening to the podcast. The thing I really like about it is it's not literally the whole game play by play. You guys are sort of highlighting certain moments within the game as it progresses, and really fantastic job sort of creating the illusion that this is actually happening. There's Kurt, are you doing the broadcast? Is that you doing it?
Yeah, so I'm doing the play by play.
It's totally, I buy it. And
I'm gonna embarrass Kurt here. He has a childhood friend who's a former student of mine who he's a producer for TSN, which is ESPN in Canada. And Kevin has listened to the broadcast, and he texted me and he said, this guy's better than about 90% of the people that are on TV and radio right now. Oh, it's true. It's true.
That's fun.
No, I actually believe that. Yeah. And I mean, but it's not just the play by play. It's also, you got some sounds in there. You hear some crowd noises and organ, and like, it's great. Like, it really kind of creates that, that belief that these two teams, which have never played against each other from different decades, it's actually happening. But I picked up on something pretty quickly, which is that the format, and I think, Don, this is where you come in the podcast. You're sort of throwing in the historical reference that's happening in the game, or you're kind of giving us some context as to what's going on.
Yeah, and it's a way of moving it along. Like, long story short, we choose the teams, we do the research so that we can play the game, and then, as Kurt said before, that becomes the basis for the script. So you've got the game that you've played, the board game, and then you choose 9 or 10 things that happen in the game that you are going to write play by play for. And then, say for example, Clemente hits a triple in the 3rd inning. Well, to be able to then jump ahead to the 5th inning after Kurt has done that play-by-play, I'll have a little bit of a narrative, something informative about Roberto Clemente, and now let's rejoin the action in the top of the 5th. So it moves it along. Yeah.
One of my favorite little bits in that vein was it must have been a Brooklyn Dodger episode. Campanella hits a home run.
Oh yeah.
And the broadcast mentions it landing on Bedford Avenue. Yep. And then, thank you for the hat change, Kurt. And then,
on the fly.
And then, Don, you kind of come in and you talk about Bedford Avenue itself and its relevance in terms of just like what it meant to be a Brooklyn fan in Ebbets Field at that time, and the fact that it was just a part of the hustle and bustle of Brooklyn and what it meant to be a fan at the time. And I just like that because it's tied to what's happening, but it's not literally a part of, the play-by-play, let's say.
Yeah, I think what happens is that once the game plays out, and that's the other thing that's tough. We mentioned it. I forget who we had the 75 Red Sox playing. I can't remember who it was, but in that game, Fred Lynn didn't do anything, Jim Rice didn't do anything, and Yastrzemski didn't do anything. So we couldn't talk about them because you have to stay true to the script, or excuse me, to the action in the game. So there wasn't a whole lot to say about them. But what happens is that once you choose what your segments are going to be to describe, then you start to go down those roads. So, for example, if Campanella hit a home run to right, okay, and a little bit about Ebbets Field, then you start to do a little bit of research about it and then see if you can write a little bit of narrative about it. The other thing that's really interesting is that YouTube really helps. Because, you'll then, say, for example, it's the 52 Dodgers, you YouTube that and you watch some footage, and then there's something that stands out that you think, okay, can we work this into part of the narrative? Right. Or part of Kurt's play-by-play, because there's loads of opportunities between pitches to storytell as well.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember too that the umpire thing. It was with the Augie Donatelli. So we were writing the script, I think, for the second game. Yeah, that's right, because our friend John was quite upset that the 67 Cardinals lost. He was very mad at me, actually. But in that game, we mentioned the umpire, and I thought, oh, I should mention an umpire. And then I just remembered the name Augie Donatelli. And then I was watching some YouTube stuff, and you can go on to YouTube and see this. The final out, all of a sudden, you're going to see some guy dressed in a suit run towards the pitcher's mound and snatch a hat off of one of the players' heads. And I thought, geez, a fan ran out of no, it was Augie Donatelli.
Wow.
Because when I Googled Augie Donatelli to make sure that he was an umpire at that particular, during that time frame, there was a story about how at the end of the game, if I remember right, I think he grabbed Julian Javier's hat or cap, and then he ran and he grabbed another one for each of his sons. So we worked that into but you don't find that out until you start to do a little bit of research. And as long as you're not closed-minded and you say, let's see what we can find out and then see if you can use it. So
that's great.
Yeah.
One other quick question that comes to mind, and then I would love to get into sort of your guys' memorabilia and stories and things like that. Before we started tonight, you mentioned who you're kind of, I mean, obviously you guys, I would imagine you guys are having fun creating this, and it's been some pleasure for you guys, but who are you hoping, or who is your audience, let's say, in terms of where this is going to, or who you're trying to reach?
You go, Kurt.
I think, definitely guys who tune into Cardroom Live religiously.
Yeah.
I think, baseball fans in general, but I think we're also hoping that folks who maybe enjoyed baseball years ago and maybe enjoyed with their parents or enjoyed with their grandparents can hear these broadcasts, and it brings memories back to those times. And we know that baseball is a nostalgia sport, and I think that we're hoping that some of those fans and those folks will hear our podcast and go, man, that takes me back. That I can remember being at the lake with my grandpa, and the transistor radio was on, and we could hear the voice of whoever, Vin Scully, and take them back to that moment in time.
We had a funny thing happen. A former colleague of mine, we do this thing where we say, well, we have a moment, a big WJJC hello to a loyal listener. And we mentioned somebody that we know was listening to the podcast. And this colleague and friend of mine, she used to listen to ball games as a kid with her grandmother. And so we said, a big WJJC hello to loyal listener, Nikki O out in Brandon, Manitoba. When the Nick was a kid, she used to love listening to games with her gram. Well, she texts me after she listens to the episode, and she says, how did you know that my grandmother called me the Nick? Well, we didn't. We just put that into the script. So it's all these neat things that are happening that make it a lot of fun.
Making memories along the way.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. I mean, Kurt, you mentioned that baseball has a nostalgia factor to it. I was just literally maybe this morning or yesterday, I was watching an interview with Jane Levy, who's, written a lot of great baseball books. And she has a new book coming out about what she would do if she were the commissioner to sort of get baseball back on track. And one of the things she said was kids under 10 should be free in terms of tickets to baseball games, which I thought was a great idea. And she said, look, if you want to get kids interested, make it more affordable for families to be able to bring their kids. And, there's something about the handoff from one generation to the next that's always been a part of baseball. And if you want to maintain that, you've got to keep that generational handoff going. And it seems to me that's kind of somewhere embedded in what you guys are doing, just, reliving memories in a different way in terms of these new experiences with these teams.
I'm interested to read that book, and I'm interested to read some of her other
ideas.
Bits of ideas and wisdom. Maybe every kid that attends a ball game receives a scorecard and a little directive as to how to keep score. That would be one thing, and a commemorative pencil.
Right.
Just little things like.
Before we had started too, Alex, we had mentioned that blog spot that we've started, which is targeting kids. So for those of you out there that are listening, if you've got kids in your lives, whether they're at school, grandkids, whatever it happens to be, we've got a blog spot that's called Joy in Mudville Podcast.blogspot. It's all lowercase. And what we did was we put text about the teams for each podcast, the players, the managers, the field that the game is played at. We've got something that's called Mudville Math to help kids understand the statistical nature of the game, baseball lingo, things like that, suggestions for parents and teachers. It's still very much a work in progress. And then I don't know if you need the HTTP stuff. All I know is when I look at it, it's just Joy in Mudville Podcast.blogspot, and that'll get you there. But it's and then the podcast there. The idea behind it is that as a teacher, lots of kids in class, they might be struggling with reading. They might be struggling with being enthusiastic about being at school. This is something that might be able to support them a little bit more. And as you and Kurt were just saying, it may be possibly a way to get them interested in the game. And from the podcast standpoint, it just gives them some of the background that they might need so that they can enjoy the listening that much more.
Very cool. Great. Well, tell you what, guys, how about, and we'll kind of do this free form, and Kurt, we can start with you.
Sure.
Any memorabilia that you would like to share with folks in the chat?
You bet. I've got a piece of modern memorabilia. So in game 6 of our podcast, There Is Joy in Mudville, we have Roberto Clemente and the 71 Pirates taking on Willie Mays and the 54 Giants. But before Willie Mays was on the 54 Giants, he was on the Birmingham Black Barons in 1948 wearing jersey number 8. And this pennant comes from Miss Jojo on Instagram. That's Jose Tellier from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. You see the familiar Mays signature there at the tip of the pennant. Rickwood Field, of course, the legendary field. The triple. I recently turned 50. This was happy birthday to me from.
Oh, he's logging. He's gone for a second there, right?
There he is.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
There's Jackie from 1946 in the Montreal Royals.
Is that a photograph?
Don comes from Montreal. It's a print.
Oh, okay.
And so I should also mention, Alex, that this segment of Cardroom Live is brought to you by Young Canada's favorite bazooka. It's not quite a cup of coffee, but it's a cup of cold water.
Yeah, I wish it were brought to us by Bazooka. I could use it.
Yeah.
Don, how about you?
Well, I'll show you my my pièce de résistance. This is a baseball signed by all of the original members of Montreal Expos.
Oh, wow.
So that's Rusty Staub right there. Some of the signatures are fading.
Sure.
Rusty Staub's is there. Mac Jones, Gary Sutherland, Elroy Face, Bill Stoneman. They're all here. And the story behind it is that my great uncle, my mother's uncle, who he fought in World War I, he lived about a 5-minute walk from where his seat was in 1969. He had season tickets. And if you I think it's probably the same thing now. Back then, afternoon games in Montreal started at 2:05 or 2:15. So batting afternoon games, yeah. If batting practice for the Expos would have taken place at about 11:15, 11 o'clock in the morning, well, he'd be the only one in the stands. And one day he's sitting there, and a player pops up, walks over, and hands him an autograph ball. So that's kind of the story behind that. Yeah, yeah. And my brother has the opening day ticket from 1969, if I remember right. I think it's the 14th. Expos 1-8-7. Certain numbers stick in your head forever. Yeah. So that's one of those things. But to try to maintain the autographs in the ball, you kind of have to keep it hidden away so that it's not in any daylight.
Yes.
And, even then, 56 years later, it's lost some of its luster. But the key signature is still there. Yeah.
Right.
Don, tell the story about how much it costs to get to Jerry Park.
Oh gosh.
What it costs to get
actually,
into.
I think I have Do I have it here? Yes, I do. So, I mean, I'm pretty old. So to get to Jerry Park, you take the subway. So if you're under the age of 12, the subway was 10 cents. If you had a bank account at the Bank of Montreal, then you received a Young Expos card, which is what this is, which meant that the dollar bleach receipt I could get in for 25 cents. And then I'd take the subway home for another 10 cents. So I could go and see a Major League Baseball game for 45 cents.
Boy.
And for a quarter, you get this giant glass of the greatest 7-Up in the world. I've never drank 7-Up other than at Jerry Park, and it's maybe the greatest drink I've ever had in my life. That's the card here.
Yeah. Oh yeah, can you show the card again?
Oh,
there you go. Look at
that
that.
one says 1974. I keep thinking so. It must have been as long as you're under the age of 16. But
Right.
And I can't remember if that started right away in 1969 or not. But it was very early on. Yeah. So 1969, I may have had to pay the full $1 for the ticket, which
the full $1. Wow.
Yeah, which wasn't that bad at all.
Nice. Kurt, how about you?
Sure. So in game 4 of our podcast, Jackie Robinson and the 52 Brooklyn Dodgers take on the 65 Minnesota Twins, featuring the legendary Harmon Killebrew. And this is my signed Killebrew card, Boog Powell signed as well. And there's Frank Robinson as well.
Nice.
That's one of the
Oh, wow.
one of the pieces of my collection that I'm proud of. Harmon Killebrew and Topps Giants.
Fantastic set.
Harmon Killebrew Topps, I guess it's Topps posters.
Right.
Killebrew postcard, I think from, this is pretty new, 19.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
Artwork by Michael Taylor.
Yeah.
I think everyone likes Killebrew launching one into orbit. There's a great one of Harm. I like this one too. This is the 62 American League home run leaders, featuring Norm Cash and Rocky Colavito up in the top corners, and Killebrew is in the center. And we've got Reggie Jackson and Frank Howard at the bottom, and Killebrew on top. Those are the 69 American League home run leaders.
Kurt, do you know the answer to this?
It'll be Topps. It won't be OPC. Yeah, and in fact, when I ordered it, it looked like it had a little bit of damage, but it has a staple punch through it. When I held it up to the light, I noticed the staple punch. So, well, can't win them all.
Right.
I guess that's it for Harmon.
There's another Harmon for you.
You guys are making Stuke happy, big Twins and Killebrew fan.
Well, one of the things I started to do was that with the podcast, similar to Kurt, it's kind of, I was thinking, what was that line from The Godfather? Just when you thought that you're out, they pull you back in.
Yes.
It was like I was slowly but surely getting rid of my collection, but then I started to collect things all over again. So depending on the teams, like all of a sudden, Earl Batty and things like that, I've got different cards of different players that ended up doing something special on the podcast that we had. So I just pulled those up.
That's great.
This here is this the one? So the very first game that I went to in 1969, I think it was May the 18th or the 19th, and it was Bat Day. And first 15,000 fans got a bat. And I want you to imagine, for those of you out there who are younger, imagine if 15,000 fans or 20 or 25 would receive an actual baseball bat nowadays.
Right.
And what chaos might ensue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the bat that I got was a Rusty Staub bat, and I was just thrilled because at one point in my life I had reddish hair, but long since gone. Anyway, I used that bat in Little League for about 3 years until it broke, and then I was at a flea market about 7 or 8 years ago, and lo and behold, there's this guy who has got these baseball bats in this brown, sort of like, it looked like butcher paper bags, and inside bats. So here's Bob Bailey. So I've got a Bob Bailey bat, and I've also got a Rod Carew bat that I'm assuming that these are from 1969 because I remember going to a bat day another year, and that's when they had sort of started giving the smaller versions and mini versions of bats. But yeah, so I picked up, when I bought the Bob Bailey one, I bought one for my brother and one for his close friend as well, and put them in the mail to Montreal. But those were kind of special things to be able to get your hands on. And then the Rod Carew one was just an extra one that he had. So
I'll follow it up with a few Carew items. So there's a great Chaw card. That's the 1975 SSPC Rod Carew. I read somewhere recently where Carew said that he kept a huge wad of Chaw in his right cheek as a left-handed batter, and the words that he used were because it steadied his lead eye. It steadied his eye, and I thought, holy smokes, he might be onto something. So the other thing I have is 1978 Tasty Freeze International. This is number 8 in the set, Rod Carew, 1977 batting average of .388. And these were distributed, I think, at Big T family restaurants. So there's Tasty Freeze International, 1978. Got a signed Rod Carew card. I think I bought this from Baseball Collector.
Oh, great.
Probably a year and a half ago. And here's an OPG when Carew was with the Angels.
okay.
Great Carew card right by the batting cage. And then something a little bit more modern is a scorecard from, I guess, from the Metrodome, 2008, I think. And there's the great Carew there on the front of the scorecard from the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul.
Wow.
So Jay Hawker, Vintage Cards, otherwise known as Mike, is saying, finally some Carew items on YouTube. It doesn't happen as often. So you guys are scratching an itch.
Glad to help out.
I remember a while ago, Alex, you had posted something about, how to display some things, and you had some different ideas.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I mean, this is no big deal, but just those, those little figurines that you can buy.
Yeah.
And then a card. And then if you've got a book that's related to it, that sort of thing. Like I've got a Bob Gibson, one of these right behind me, I think, over this shoulder, I think. And his book, I think it's called Pitch by Pitch, and then also a card from 1969 of him. Those things are kind of fun to have on display, and they're very easy to do as well and not expensive. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a big fan of trying to find different items that go together like that. I think that's great.
Yeah.
Don, could you tell your story about camera day at Jerry Park and maybe
it's not a great story. It's just what
well, it is a good story. It is a good story, and maybe Larry Doby is involved.
Oh yeah, that part's interesting. Yeah. So I think it was 1971. Might be wrong with the date. In fact, this was a photograph that I still have kicking around before they let you onto the field before the game. So I was sitting on the first base side that day. You can see the left field bleachers that are there. And then they let you onto the field. And so when I was on the field, got to make sure I don't kill myself reaching back for this here. There we go. Larry Doby.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that's a type 1 photo of Larry Doby as, was he the hitting coach for the Expos then?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yeah.
And is that a fellow, like a member of a band that's in front of him?
Those are the ushers. Yeah.
The usher, yeah, I was going to say, look at that.
We were looking, I was showing my wife and my daughter a couple of YouTube things from opening day from 1969, because there's a lot of stories that are told that aren't true. Like I say, oh yeah, people were watching games standing on snowbanks behind the fence. Well, there's no snow. There was a snowstorm about 5 or 6 days later, but there was no snow on opening day. It was a beautiful day and all of the snow had gone, that sort of thing. So while we were doing that, there was a picture of one of the, it was an usherette and, wearing these crazy costumes at the time. And so that's what that guy's wearing. He actually looks like he's a vendor, but no, he was one of the, he was security, though I don't think he's many people. And then, you pick up Larry Doby cards. I'm terrible at this. Sorry, guys. And then Kurt and I both kind of collect children's books about baseball players. So there's a new one that he and I both have. See if I can find it here. I've got one at the back there that's called Just as Good, and this one is called All Star.
Oh, wow.
And we've got tons of them. There's a lot of really, really good illustrated picture book biographies about different baseball players or different baseball stories. Another really good one is this one here, The Kid from Diamond Street, the extraordinary story of baseball legend Edith Houghton. She basically turned professional, I think, at about the age of 12 or 13 and traveled to Japan to play a series of exhibition games. So there's lots of really neat stuff out there.
Very cool. I just grabbed this off the shelf. This is a story that I'm very interested in, and it kind of fits my PC, being it's like New York centric. Here, the shot heard around the world.
Oh, yeah.
Really short, very tall, beautiful artwork. Just to give you guys a sense here.
All right,
these
on.
guys are. Oops.
Oh, so it's using photographs?
It's actually artwork.
Oh, wow.
Let me see if I can find it better. And it's from the perspective of some kids in the neighborhood that are following the game.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, it's really great.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like, it's not something you normally look for or you would think, because it's not obviously marketed towards us, but there's some really fantastic books out there meant for the younger generations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the things I'll show you before I forget is, hopefully they'll show up okay. There was a Sunday newspaper in Montreal that would, for a number of years, I think decades, they would insert sport pictures within in their Sunday edition. So after the Expos came into being, then, so there's Gene Mock, Bob Bailey, that's Steve Renko. This is the one that I like because, when we talk about stories that aren't true, so there's Ken Singleton, and you can see the left field bleachers behind him. And right here is the gap between the left field bleachers and the third base grandstand. Mm-hmm. And what would happen is that at certain points in the summer, as the sun was setting, the sun would go right through that gap. And they would have to delay the game. It might be fourth or fifth inning, that sort of thing. Then all of a sudden they'd have to call time for about 15 or 20 minutes until the sun completely set, because you'd be blinded.
Wow.
Yeah, completely blinded. Yeah.
That was your cue to go grab.
Sorry, Kurt, what was that?
That was your cue to go and grab a 7-Up.
Yeah, exactly. Loads of time, yeah. And they talk about there was a swimming pool behind the scoreboard, and the story is, when Willie Storrs would come up, or Willie McCovey, they'd have to blow the whistle and the lifeguards would clear the pool. No, that didn't happen. There were a couple of times balls were hit into the pool, but you weren't getting 150 kids out of the pool whenever you wanted, whenever somebody came to bat. It made a nice story, but yeah.
We'll stick with some Larry Doby.
Sure.
There's one from Scott, Reindeer Studios. I think
excellent.
Scott's in the chat, I think.
Yeah, always.
52, Larry.
Oh, right.
And 54, Bowman. I think that's my favorite Larry Doby card.
That's great. Yeah, it's an unusual shot, right? Because he's sitting on the dugout steps.
That's great. And if we get back to Campy for a bit, I know I showed this a little bit earlier, 57. That's my favorite Campy card. I can't tell you why, it just is. I know I showed this magazine when I was on a few months ago.
That's right, yeah. But there he is, hitting that home run, right?
Hitting that home run. If we stick with kids' books, here's one that I recently got out of the U.S. Campy. And a great picture on the back side as well.
There it is, yeah.
That one's by David A. Adler and illustrated by Gordon C. James, the story of Roy Campanella. Yeah. Here's a Great Life magazine.
Yes.
Featuring the great catcher. And I wanted to show another Life magazine as well, because 1941 has some significance. So a yearly subscription to Life magazine in 1941 was $4.50. So this one came out September 1st of 41. And if you picked it up at the newsstand, it was 10 cents. And the caption in the lower left-hand corner is number one batter. And I should say so.
Oh.
That one to me is a framer.
Yeah, for sure. What year is that?
That's 41.
41, yeah.
So some significance there too with the season that Ted had in 41.
Right, and the war just, on the horizon. That's great.
That's right. Of course, us in Canada, we had been in the war since 39. And so when we think of World War II in Canada, just 39 comes to mind. But of course, Pearl Harbor hadn't happened yet. And,
right.
But it sure would. The world would change forever.
Right.
I wanted to maybe make mention too, Alex, that we wanted to thank everybody that has listened to our podcast and thank everyone who is contemplating having a listen. Most of our episodes are in the neighborhood of, I'd say 30 minutes, eh, Don?
Yeah. The last one we did is a little bit longer. I think it's 35. Yeah.
I was going to say 30 minutes or in that ballpark anyway.
Yeah.
But Game 8 in our podcast features Babe Ruth and the 33, what we describe as Major League Baseball All-Stars, taking on Cool Papa Bell and the 1933 Negro League All-Stars. So there's a great biography on Cool Papa Bell. And I think that this cover is just the greatest. I know it. We talked about Larry Doby, and I know a lot of collectors like the yellow on baseball cards, and some don't, and that's okay. I really like it, and I really like the yellow of the Cool Papa Bell. And taking on Babe Ruth, and my one Babe Ruth bit of memorabilia is it's a record, an LP, and there's Babe and Lou once again embarrassed by Babe's antics.
Right.
But the really nice thing about this album is on the back, and it features a great shot of a young Mel Allen, voice of the Yankees.
That's great.
And if Don wants to show some stuff, maybe I could come back with a little bit of Mel Allen, few Mel Allen items.
Sure.
That's neat. Well, I've got a couple of Life magazines here. So this one's from 1940, April the 1st. Spring Training with Rookie Rucker.
Oh, look at that.
And when you go through it, I think it's on page 50. Basically, he's from a little town in Georgia, I think. I think it's Appleby or Crab. I apologize for those of you who are from Georgia. North of Atlanta, U.S. Highway number 19 winds up through the Georgia Hill Country, up over the ruddy red earth and under the sparse green pines. At Roswell, a narrow road cuts off to the right. 5 miles along there is a tiny village of Crabapple.
Crabapple. Okay.
Yeah.
Not familiar with it, but...
Well, it's some guy who was trying out in the major leagues, and he didn't make it, but it was just a story of his journey and pictures of people along the way that helped him. It's a really neat story. Yeah. And then I've got the Mickey Mantle one from July of 1965, I believe it is, when he was in the throes of more injuries. And yeah, so I've got those things here. There is something too. I hopefully this is worthwhile showing you. Oh, I know what I want to mention. I don't know if anybody out there collects Chip Hilton books and Bronk Burnett books. These were books that are Hardy Boy-like. They're Hardy Boy era. The first one that he wrote was a football book. I think it was called, Claire B is the author, sorry. Was from 1948 called Touchdown Pass. So there's football, basketball, and baseball in the series. There's 20. He wrote 23 of them, and I think his family, after he had died, wrote a 24th. So they're great books. When I was a kid, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot out there for kids to read. I probably read each of the books that we had 5, 6, 7 times, and then started collecting as an adult. So if anybody is out there who collects them, let me know, because I'm missing 2. Well, I'm missing 1. I think I've got my book here. This is a plea. I don't have Hungry Hurler. That was the 23rd in the series, and it actually is really expensive on eBay because I think that it was a limited edition. And then I have 2 others, Payoff Pitch and Triple Threat Trouble, where the spines are in really bad shape. So I need to replace them.
Come on, guys, help Don out.
Yeah, exactly. And I've got some other things here, like in this series of buttons or badges that came out, I believe, mid 1969. So this is a Rusty Staub one. There was one for each player: Coco the Boy, Mac Jones, Bill Stillman, that sort of thing. So these are kind of neat to have something a little bit different. And I came across this. I mean, this has this might be meaningless for a lot of people, but again, this was one of those things that I read over and over again. Sandlot's Peanuts by Charles Schultz.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I found these on eBay, and actually I've got one here for Kurt because the guy in Canada was selling. He was selling both of them. He wasn't selling one at a time; it had to be both. So I picked up both, and yeah, these are quite good. In fact, I bookmarked one. If you can humor me here, it's Charlie Brown says to Schroeder. He says, "Just think, we've won 2 games in a row by forfeit. If the other team doesn't show up today, we'll have a 3-game winning streak. We'll be in first place." Blah blah blah. Schroeder turns and he says, "Here comes the other team." And then Charlie Brown says, "Thus endeth the winning streak."
And that
Story of my life in baseball.
reminds me, Don, I owe you $25.
Oh, I haven't forgotten.
So Mel Allen, I know we're getting close on time here, Alex.
Yep.
I think most in the chat will know Pat Hughes, the radio voice of the Chicago Cubs. I think he's been with the Cubs since '96 and has been a major league announcer since '83. So he put out these CDs on baseball broadcasters. This is the Mel Allen one. They're available in digital form now, but these are the compact digital discs, and they're really good. I've got most of them. This is a great book on Mel. How about that? Of course, that was his catchphrase for years and years. Tells his life story. Kurt Smith, who is known to most as the voice of baseball broadcasters. He's written a lot of books on baseball broadcasting. That's his book on Mel Allen. He also has one on Vinny. Pull up
Nice.
a chair.
Oh, wow.
And if anybody is interested in getting into baseball broadcasting books, I think you should probably start with Voices of the Game by Kurt Smith. That should be your introduction, and that will get you started for a lifetime of enjoying baseball broadcasting, both in the present and in the past.
Wonderful. And in the meantime, you can also listen to Kurt on There's Joy in Mudville, right?
Yes.
For sure.
The latest broadcaster. Well, we should probably start wrapping this up. I want to say to everybody, thanks for joining in, especially those of you in the chat. If you enjoyed this live stream, please give it a thumbs up. It means something, believe it or not. If you want to get in touch, guys, for future ideas, you can always email me at bowman53channel@gmail.com. Guys, the podcast is There Is Joy in Mudville, home of the What If Baseball podcast. You can find it on Spotify and on Apple. And am I missing another place where you can find it? Are those the 2 main ones?
Yeah, and I mean, if you Google it, it's the same thing. It
Right.
pops up there as well. Yeah.
Okay, great.
There's not a link. There's not a link to the blog spot. The blog spot is a separate thing. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Kurt and Don, thank you both for sharing the podcast and for sharing some stories and some memorabilia tonight.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Well, thank you. It's a lot of fun.
All right, guys. You guys know 4 Collectors is up next at 9:00. Until next Sunday night, everybody, have a great week, and we will see you next time.